hi guys, hope everybody's okay. I'm going to be talking about maths, and for those of you who know me, I've got this all in sort of a PowerPoint space where I will share, but I'm not very good at talking without writing, so I'm going to talk at you while I scribble some bits down. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look. We're going to look at maths. Now, with maths is different from everything else that you've looked at. It's not learning. You can't learn maths by watching loads of videos. The only way to do it is to do questions and questions and questions. And my mantra that I always repeat and I always tell everybody is little and often. So doing 5 questions a day on a variety of topics is almost your best starting point. And then you find the questions that don't necessarily work for you, that you're not 100% sure about that topic, and that's what you hone in on. So you know the makeup of a maths GCSE now, right? It's normally a few easier questions to start with. If you haven't already, you should start looking at some exam papers, but it's a few easier questions to start with, and then they get bigger and bigger and they become more problem solving. So when we're at examiners meetings, you get, you know, I've heard examiners say, well, what unlikely topic can we mix probability in this year or ratio in with this year? So it's changing the question. So the big shift that happened in 2017 when the syllabus changed was it went from asking you, I know, what's 27 times 34 in a foundation, in a non-calculator paper, to saying the farmer walked around the room, this happened, and you know, this is the perimeter, and this all of, essentially to get you to work out 27 times 34. So with maths, your best thing to do is to do lots and lots of questions. At the moment, I know we're keeping evidence, and I have been criticized from Ofsted for saying things like this, but as soon as you've done a question, I couldn't care less if you scrunched up and put in the bin, because the only way for you to practice is to do that question again. Yes, you should have some perfect, beautiful examples. I'll give you I'll show you. They're under the Edexcel section. And what you can see here is you've got, exactly like we've been talking about, Miss English talked about in English, you've got a knowledge organizer where you've got what needs to be done, some keywords, and you know, these are transferable. Maths doesn't change across boards. So you've got how to work out percentage and increase, decrease. Now that's useful to have. It's useful to have one example of everything. However, what maths is a ladder. Once you've got those skills, which hopefully you've had enough practice doing textbook questions, doing whatever you've done at school, and now what you need to do is transfer that practice into your problem solving and then techniques to pass your exam or get the grades that you need. So in terms of problem solving and in terms of for maths, we've got a few techniques that we use. So there's different things that you can use to help you come up with strategies in order to answer those questions, which now form at least 80% of the paper. Let's think of the strategies we have. So within maths, we can do things like, like if I think of the strategies or the tools that we have, we've got organizing our information. So organize all, like if you get lots of information, a big load of words, we don't expect words in maths, they're annoying. Break it down, organize that information into a table. A lot of questions are show that questions. So if you ever show that question, work backwards. Nobody knows that you've worked backwards. Start at the bottom of the page and work upwards, right? Other things that we're going to look at is estimate first. You know, ballpark it. Make sure you're sense checking it the whole time. If I give you 15 minutes at the end of the paper to go check, you might be good at it. I'm not good at picking out my own mistakes. It's easier for me to pick them out as I go. So by estimating it, and that's my check. So I work out something exactly, and then in my head, I'm rounding it and checking that my numbers, I've got a helicopter test, is more or less right. When I use a calculator, I will always do, so if I type 5 times 6 in, I fat finger things sometimes, and I get an answer, I will then divide by 6 and check I got to 5 before I move on to the next question. But anyway, back to our problem solving. We can draw a bar model. Now I have done, I'm not sure that I've uploaded it yet, how to do bar models or using bar models in foundation maths. We'll put a YouTube, it's a whole separate lesson, but that's, you know, that's a technique you can use. You can highlight your key information, especially units, and this goes for science as well. You know, if there's loads of words, make an equation. I know you don't like X's and sometimes algebra feels a little bit scary. So use a question mark or a box or a smiley face for the thing you don't know. It doesn't matter, right? Just get used to the idea of representing things with the bits you're not sure of. And always write down a useful formula. So if the question is about density, you don't get given that many formulas in maths. By writing the formula down, or it's about speed, and you can see speed, you can see time in there, write speed equals distance over time. Even if you're not sure how you're going to use that, you will get the mark for knowing the formula. So that's kind of problem solving, and we'll break it down and actually look at some questions, but let's also talk about the exam. Now, whereas for your other subjects, you may not get a mixed up exam. They may be able to say, we're going to test you on this topic or this topic. We're not sure exactly how it's all going to work, or these mini tests are going to work. Within maths, everything is combined. So even though if you're going to test number, which has ratios in it, it might also have problem solving and some algebra. So it's unlikely you're going to just get, you may have a topic test on probability, but it will also be testing other skills. So you've got to actually think about, let's assume for the moment we're going to get an exam paper, even if it's a mock or it's some sort of test and some sort of exam paper. So typically across all the boards, typically you've got 1 mark should in your head equal 1 minute. This leaves time for checking, but this gives you a gauge on, am I doing the question right? So if you're spending 5 minutes on a 1 mark question, you're doing something wrong. There is an easier method. On the flip side, if it's a 6 mark question and you've just written 1 line and you think you're done, double check. You've probably missed something. So make sure you look at the marks. This is just exam technique, but really look at the amount of marks something is, and also then how it balances out. Right. Like I said, word questions can be daunting. So we're going to underline. I know we can't highlight, but we're going to underline key information. Now, if you're going to be taking these tests, if you're year 11 and going to be taking them in school, your teachers might be happy with you on highlighting. So it's the same sort of thing. Underline your key information. Ignore anything that's irrelevant. It's maths. We don't care whether the question is about, you know, red pebbles or dice. It's irrelevant. So cross out, if you like, any red herrings or information that you're not going to need. And every time you either cross out the information or you use it, put a tick next to it. So just to make sure you've not missed anything out. All right, so we've got mark a minute. We're underlining all those wordy questions. It'll make more sense as we do some, but let's get all the stuff here. And I know I'm not a perfect example of this, but write neatly. I know it's not a written exam, but the easier you make it for me to give you a mark, the more marks you're going to get. If you are my 50th paper of the evening, and I've looked at the same question, I'm hoping I don't make a mistake, but if you lay everything out beautifully, include your units, include all your working, even if you've done it, if you've done the maths in 1 line, because, you know, you're fantastic at it, in an exam, you need to put that working in. So go back and fill out the working so I can give you those marks, but really try write neatly. You know, when you write a fraction, it doesn't matter whether you write 4.5 like that. or, you know, some students write it like that. But if you're writing it and it's sort of scribbled, I don't know whether it's 41/2. It shouldn't look like that. Just be really careful. The other thing where students lose marks is the difference between a 1 and a 7. So I always put a line through my 7, you don't need to, but just be really careful that your 1s and 7s look different. And if your teachers circle it and say question mark, they're going to be marking your work. You might be annoyed and say, well, I can tell and everybody else can tell, but it's what the person marking it is what's going to matter. Now, if you get the right answer, typically we give you the benefit of the doubt. So if the answer is 72 and we're not sure if you've written 12 or 72, we're probably going to give you the mark. The issue is if it's wrong and we want to give you those 4 out of 5 marks, we need to be able to see you're working. All right, so now this is a bit more very specific, if you like, to maths. It's the words bit, right? You see the word, the things that a lot of students get wrong. So these are the easy marks that you shouldn't be losing. Estimate. Estimate means work out roughly. Don't try to do an exact working. It means you want to round your numbers to one significant figure, okay? Not one, you know, don't make it, if it says estimate, that's what they want. And if they said 96, you're making it 100. You know, if it's 42.7, you're not making it 43. You're making it 40. You're making everything round to one significant figure. If you have explain, you need to tell the examiner how you got the answer. So you need to make sure that you have written there your step-by-step process in order to get to that answer. Right, so explain, we want to tell the examiner how we got there. So we want to say it's because the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So we want to have our method. So look for those keywords as you're reading an exam question. Construct. This is code for draw accurately, okay? So this is draw accurately. And this means you're using your ruler, you're using your compass, you're using your protractor, or whatever the case might be. Okay, so generally you see those words when you're looking at your construction questions. Okay, let's think of a few more. We've got calculate. All right, so a lot of students think that means they take their calculator out. It just means work out and show you're working. I know I do a lot of calculator tricks or tips and I show you how to get to the answer straight away. I hope I've also showed you how to work backwards so it looks like you've done all the steps manually, right? Your calculators are great, but if you don't put your working there, you may not get all the marks. If it's a 1 marker, no problem at all. But if it's more than 1 mark, you want to show each of those steps. Okay, complete. And that means fill out a table. The amount of students that do the work, but then don't go back and put it into the table, we can't give you a mark. So if it gives you a table, like, you know, a probability table, I don't know, and you had, you know, you could get 2, 3, 4, or 5, 0.2, 0.3, 0.1, and you had to fill that out. You worked it out underneath, so you did 1 minus, but you didn't go back and fill in the table, you're not necessarily able to get the marks because you haven't followed the instructions. So with maths, it's very, you know, you've got to go step by step and just try and make sure you actually look for those keywords. I'll put a whole, you'll also get in the folder, you know, maths commands, examples and practice of each of these. But they're the sort of things that maybe you don't learn or you don't think about because it's assumed that you know what they're going to mean. Okay, so there's some of our keywords. Now let's look at a few more which are more specific to certain topics. So if we look at algebra, should I do this on it? Yes. algebra. So if we have, I don't know, 4d minus 5. If I'm asked to expand, I'm going to open out those brackets. And to go the other way, I'm going to factorize. So we've got some more there. However, if I see the word solve, you're going to expect to see an equal sign. So you want to end up with x equals. Now, this is my other bugbear as an examiner. My students like to put equal signs all over the place, or just have none at all, or just don't believe in them at all. So if there's no equal sign, so if you have, I'll show you what I mean. Let's think of a question. So if I had 4x plus 2 equals 18, right? So you would minus 2 from both sides, you'd get 4x, and then you'd divide by 4, and you'd get x equals 4. Right, so I've got my equal sign following in a line all over it. Now, if somebody had put minus 2 here equals 16, or like, and that's still okay, but then divide by 4 equals 4, or don't put any equals in, you get lots of things not structured. Try make it super easy for someone to give you the marks. You don't need to write the minus 2 and the divide by 4, but it will just help you check it. So the way I would check this then is go backwards. I would take the 4 and I would put it not back in. If I have rewritten this line on my working, I'm not going to put it back into here, because I could have in the exam stress copied the question down wrong. I'm going to take that 4 while I'm still on the question, go back to the top of the sheet where the exam question is printed, stick the 4 in and do, okay, 4 times 4, 16 plus 2 equals 18. Yes, I've got it right. But the biggest mistakes sometimes are not because you don't know how to do the maths, is in the stress of an exam, someone's copied something down wrong. Right, so I went through lots of examiners' comments and papers and where students lose easy marks. Just so you're aware and you're thinking about this. So this is not difficult maths. This is just where a lot of marks are lost. So when reading questions, not rounding, right? Make sure you round correctly. So you need to know the difference between decimal places and significant figures. Right. So for example, let's take a number. Let's take 0.045368. Okay. So I want to do, let's do decimal places first. We're going to do 2 decimal places. So we're going to count 1, 2, look at the one afterwards. The one after is 5 or bigger, so we've got to add 1, so we get 0.05. However, to 2 significant figures, that 0 is not a significant figure, the 0 here. So it's going to be 0.045 because after the 5 is a 3. How about, let's think of something else for significant figures, which goes wrong. So let's take 85762.4 and say I want this to 3 significant figures. So a lot of students get it right. They count 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3. And they get, there's a 6 there. And they're like, okay, I know I need to go up. And I get 858. And then they stop. That's not the same, is it? This is where your helicopter check comes in. You've got to fill in the other zeros, because otherwise it's not the same number. 85,000 is very different from 858. So that's significant figures, decimal places. These are easy places where you can stop yourself losing marks. So you get that extra bit on your grade boundaries. Right. Another exam technique-y thing, which you should check, is looking at units and conversions. So this is something that gets left aside because it's the last step, but in a 5-mark question, that last step potentially loses you 1 or 2 marks. So you're checking your head, are the units the same? So are they given in the, so the other thing is, in the exam paper, you'll normally have your question, and then you'll get a line, and sometimes the units are written in for you. So sometimes the units are written in for you. Just get yourself sense checking, like glance down and go to yourself, are the units written there? Do they make sense? And, you know, so on. And you go, are the units there? If they're not there, that means I need to then work them out and remember to do things. So here are some things that you need to remember. So 5 miles is 8 kilometers. Things that I think people forget. 12 inches is 1 foot, which is 30 centimeters. And the big one is 60 minutes equals 1 hour. On your calculator, you have a button that looks like this. I'm going to try and copy it out. It's a circle. It's, so you might be able to find it. It's underneath your square root button, below the fact button. And that converts things into time. So you have to remember 30 minutes is obviously half an hour. But you can put into your calculator your number normally, and when you press that button and equals, it will convert it into time. So that's a useful thing to make sure those go right. On conversions, we've also got to think about when we square or cube things, things change. Now, I think the easiest way to do it is just draw a box. So for example, if I had a box that was 1 meter by 1 meter, but instead of, I wanted it in centimeters. So this is 1 meter squared, because 1 times 1 is 1. But this 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters. So 1 meter squared is not 100 centimeters squared. It's 100 times 100. So we've got 10,000 centimeters squared. I know I'm talking quite quickly, but this is just so you pick up some of these. And then cubed in the same way, if I was to make this into a cube, if I had a 1 by 1 by 1 meter, this is 1 meter cubed. However, if I change it all into 100 centimeters, I'm going to get 100 times 100 times 100. So just be really, really careful when you're dealing with converting units. Right, so what else on exams? From the examiner reports. Okay, so one of the things that the examiners mentioned at the last meeting we had, which actually was a while ago now, it says when you get asked to give a reason for your answer, do not write an essay. So the big thing is, do not write an essay. So you've got to think, if the question says, give reason, let's say reasons for your answer, you've got to be really careful with the language. They've said the clues are always in the exam question. I promise you, I help write questions. We're not trying to catch you out. They're said reasons. That means there's going to be more than one. If they said reason, there's only going to be one. The examiner is only looking for key words. So, you know, angles in a triangle add up to 180. Base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal. Things like that. Right. Let's see what other things are told. So that's the first thing that you might get written in an exam. The other thing it tells you is diagram not drawn accurately. So you've probably seen that in exam papers. It means you can't measure it. You've got to work it out. You've got to work the length using trigonometry or using something. So you'll need to use some sort of angle reasoning, area, volume. You're not going to be able to measure it. The other thing is don't cross anything out. So don't cross out, even if, I know I said to be neat, but say you've done some scribbled working, unless that's been rewritten, which you shouldn't be doing in an exam if you don't have time, as you don't generally have time, but don't cross out any of your working. So in maths, you're not going to cross anything out. We look at the working. We're allowed to mark the working. And if you think, oh, I've definitely done this wrong, I'm going to do it again, that's fine. But go back and do it again and then cross out. But until you've replaced it, please, please don't cross out your working. And the very last thing, which I am going to harp on about, is to tell you to answer everything. So I know this really isn't necessarily, you know, revision. It's more an exam, like bits of the exam technique for maths, the best way, but I'll go through how I think you should then revise for it. So answering everything, you're better off leaving some incorrect working, getting the odd marks, having a go at that really hard question. You never know. Working out some random angles, you might have got half the marks, right? So the big thing is the problem solving. So read the question, highlight your key information. It's not quite the same as like an English essay that you're planning, but in your head as you're reading it, you're planning your answer, you're planning how you're going to structure it using your mathematical content. And if you see something in a weird setting, so it doesn't look like a past paper question that you've done, don't panic. When you break it down and cross out all that irrelevant information, you'll probably surprise yourself with how much you can actually do. So in terms of maths, I wish I could say that you can lock yourself in your room and like for like 3 days non-stop and do question and, you know, cram all these knowledge organizers or whatever the case might be, and you'll be fine. I don't think that's, well, clearly I don't think that's the best strategy, but also it just doesn't work. I suggest for anyone who's got revision for whichever year you're in, take an exam paper. If you're doing the higher paper, it doesn't matter. Start with a foundation paper. Okay, so start with a paper, start from question 1. It starts easy, it gets harder. Go through the whole paper. Do it properly, not with the mark scheme. Take a break from it. If you can't do it, leave it. Put it in a color code. I have no idea how to do this question. Then use your exam paper, use the mark scheme, mark your answers. Any question you had no idea, that's a topic to look at. I've seen some comments asking for websites. There's some fantastic websites. There's Corbett Maths. There's Dr. Frost. Yes, I've seen that. That's for like higher level. Maths Genie's quite very, very good as well. There's lots, even BBC Bite Size. There's lots of places where you can find nice work solutions, or you know, someone talking you through that particular topic that you didn't understand. But in order to identify it, you may think, oh, I can't do surds or I can't do this. But when you start the question, you can do the first 3 steps. So it's really well worth, use an exam paper. When you come across a question you can't do, stop. When you've marked it, go do a topic, go do those topic questions, or go look at some examples, or ask for very specific help. If you've got access to MathsWatch through school, you can use MathsWatch. You can watch a video, you know, some of them are quite dull, but you'll find lots of resources on YouTube. So that would be my best suggestion. Work through an exam paper, give yourself a grade. Now you might start off getting 20%, and that's okay. You know, it's fine. You know, 20% in the November exam would have got you a level 5. So you might start off getting a very, not the grade that you want, but you'll see yourself improve, because every time you fix that one topic you're not sure of, you'll be able to do the next one. Remember, with maths, you've been learning it since year 6, year 7. Maths is a ladder, it builds. So those first few questions I could give my year 7 students, and they'll be able to do them from a foundation paper. I really like the 5 a day. It's pointless redoing it, but Corbett Maths do 5 a day. And if you Google 5 a day maths, he's put it by date. It makes you feel like you're holding yourself up for something. But even if you want to take an exam paper, so you've got a grade boundary, so you've got an idea, take an exam paper and just do 5 questions a day. You don't need to worry about the time management just yet. And that will come, because the better you get at doing the questions, if you're thinking a minute a mark, you don't need to worry about sitting down for a 2-hour stretch. You can pick 5 questions, give yourself 5-6 minutes, especially if you don't like maths. Just do a little bit every day and it will add up, and work your way up to trying to do a paper. But that, for maths, my best, yeah, I know it's really dull, but it's just questions and questions and questions. And exactly like Miss English teacher said, if there's a topic you don't like, do 100 of them, or do them every day. Add one into your stuff every single day. Because if you don't like something, that's what you've got to practice more. Okay, I've yapped quite a lot. I will put up, I have promised myself, and I will hope you guys keep me a little bit accountable. I have promised myself, and I have scheduled time in to try record at least one YouTube video every other day. So now I've said it here, I feel like it's official. I am working through exam papers because I think that's the better thing to do, but I will be working through certain topics as well and helping you create that perfect set of, examples, one of each type. But the idea is to build on your problem solving skills. So what I suggest you do is, just start, just do questions. And yes, they will feel hard. And yes, you'll think, oh no, I can't do this at all. But take a step back. If initially you're even doing the non-calculator with the calculator, then you can work out what skills you have that are missing and figure out how to fix them. But exam papers, if you go to the exam websites, we've got them on zahraclassroom.com as like Google Drive folders where you can download the whole lot in one go. Like I said, these knowledge organizers are on there. And if you've got suggestions of resources, just tell us. If there's something we can help with, I've got a wealth of stuff from other teachers, from various places. Even if it's not something I've done, I can at least point you in the right direction. So that's maths. Anybody got any questions for maths? And then I'll get, Miss English teacher and tag back in, and we'll start talking about building your body of evidence, show you an example of a grade tracker that we're going to put in, and have a bit more discussion around what we think is happening with exams. So for maths, do you think it's a good idea to do 5 a day? Definitely. To get the highest grade in foundation, exam papers. Maths is just paper after paper. But don't just do the exam paper, put it aside and not do anything with it. So you do the paper. When there's a question you can't do, highlight it to start with, or a question you don't get right, write a perfect solution. Use the exam, use your teachers, use the mark scheme if you have to. Some of the websites everyone's mentioned have perfect solutions. There's a lot of the exam papers are on YouTube to work through, right? And, that's what you need to do. So you need to go through your exam paper and you need to work out what questions you can't do and just keep practicing. There's years and years worth of exam papers. I know the new syllabus started in 2017. If you did one a day until the end of the year, you still won't have finished all the exam papers. So if you can't access anything, send me a message. I can definitely, point you in the right direction to lots of questions and papers. Oh, thanks, Tom. Tom's put up some YouTube with the calculator. Yes, learn how to use your calculators. That's a whole nother masterclass in itself. So learn how to use your calculator. Make sure you use it effectively. A lot of the new, like even this one, you'll see you have like a ratio button that does so many things, right? So in a calculator exam, you should be absolutely fine.